Today is Monday, March 14. I'm Pastor Anthony, and this is Wilderness Wanderings. Today our text comes from Luke chapter 20. While all the people were listening, Jesus said to his disciples, "Beware of the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely." That's Luke chapter 20, verses 45 through 47. There is a sense in which much of our evangelical world can fit under Jesus' warning here in this passage. So much of the things that have driven our practices and our passions these past years have been a desire to grow the church, to compete with the secular world, and to prove the greatness of God by the greatness of our churches and our preaching and the spectacles that we can pull off. But it is exactly those sorts of things that Jesus warns his disciples to beware of here. And of course, it's not just the evangelicals that have this problem. Many of us are tempted to the same. But Jesus notes that some of what's underneath this show and flash and pizzazz, this desire to have the places of honor, are things like the 7 deadly sins that we've been talking about in our Sunday worship services. You can hear in this passage examples of things like pride. They like to have flowing robes and love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at banquets. There is also here the sin of greed. They devour widows' houses. Give more, they say, give more, perhaps even more than you're able to give, all for the sake all so that I can build my empire. Jesus warns us against these things and tells us that these men will be punished most severely. And indeed, these sins lead to all sorts of things that distract and that actually take away from what we show up in the church for. We show up in the church to hear a word from God, a word of grace, a word of compassion, a word that meets us in our need, and that is humble enough to meet us where we are. And Jesus does exactly that. And his church should too. Ministers and leaders like myself have to hear this text and always weigh ourselves against it. As James says in his letter, we have to be careful, those of us who teach, for we will be judged more strictly. But passages like this are a warning to all of us, not just against the temptations that some of these Pharisees and teachers of the law had given themselves into of pride and greed, but we are also warned not to follow those who follow these sins of pride and greed and whatever else. Jesus says, I have a humble kingdom, and this is not necessarily what it looks like. And so if you see these things, ministers and churches that like to walk around in flowing robes and love to be greeted with respect in the business world and have the most important seats and the places of honor, Jesus says, beware of such things. Beware of such churches. And always remember that Jesus came to us humbly, and that his work of humbly giving himself up at the cross is eventually what saves us, not greatness in our own eyes. So, with these things in mind, and as you journey on, go with the blessing of God. May the peace of the Lord Christ go with you wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness, protect you through the storm, May He bring you home rejoicing at the wonders He has shown you. May He bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors.